Today, one of the things I wanted to do, I wanted to mount up Glenn's windshield, and I wanted to see if he bought these the rubber back bolts, I guess is the right way to say it. One of the things a lot of people would have an issue with, and I thought I'd share this tip. This is really a good tip. He's got enough screws. A lot of times you get 4 screws for 10 holes. We have a windshield. He bought this off eBay or Craigslist or something, and we basically polished it up with his polisher. Looks like it came out pretty nice. And now drilling the holes, you would think, and you'd be wrong. You'd be thinking, wow, just here's what we'll do. This is what most people would do anyway. They just put this up here, take a Sharpie and go, and then take this out, drill all the holes, and then when you get to the last 2, you'd find out, well, it's not going to work that well for us because this is track day body work. It's very thin, and the windshield is very thick. So if we don't get these holes drilled accurately, it's going to be a problem. Now, the way you would do this in a model airplane or a machine shop environment, and this is always a good time to explain this tip. This is a good one. When you have multiple holes that all have to line up relatively accurately, what you want to do is get this in position that you're happy with it, and you want to drill the first hole. Now you can't really drill this material with a drill as such, because what will happen is as it catches the end, it'll crack the material. So we do it with a Dremel tool, with a special, not a special bit, an ordinary bit. But here's the trick. So simple, but a lot of people do not know this. We're going to drill one hole, doesn't matter which one. One hole, put one bolt in. Now, while that's holding it in position, I can go to the other side, get this lined up nice, drill one hole, put another bolt in. Now, the last 3 or 4, this will be our template. And the bolts will be holding it in place. So these holes will be real accurate. Now, what you don't want to do, and again, here's what would happen. If you drill all 6 of them in wrong, when you tighten the bolts, it does that to the fairing. Ultimately, you wind up cracking a windshield. Ultimately, now my FZR, I had to replace the windshield. The original bodywork, I could see whoever put the original windshield on 20 years ago, they didn't have it lined up. They were egg-shaped and square and every possible thing. And when I tighten them up, a lot of times I'd see, so I'd loosen them. Now another thing, when you have windshield bolts, you don't have to make them super tight. And these are aluminum. Never put Loctite on aluminum. And what will happen is, because the aluminum is so soft, what will happen is when you go to take these out, you'll just strip the head. Seen that happen a lot, done it myself a lot. How does he know this? So the first thing is I want to establish, I'm going to tape this in position and establish where any one, it won't matter because I like to do one on each side, but get this taped in position and find one spot to drill that first hole. It's that first hole that's going to set this whole thing in position. So this is what I'm trying to do, is establish, again these are aftermarket parts. So actually what it means is this wasn't made by the same person that made that. Sometimes that's a problem. This will just hold it in position. Now what I want to do it carefully too. I want to do it by feel. There's a little gap on each side. That's nice. And do it by, see, here's what happens, because this isn't made by the same manufacturer. This piece is a straight line and this has a slight curve in it, and I don't want to dink around with the windshield. I don't want to change that. So let me just look at this one more time. Yeah, we're gonna have to live with that, that's for sure. Okay, so this is in position, and now what it's going to allow me to do from this point on. I've got the clearance right. I think we can set that right about there. Again, we got a little variation in this, so I can move the tape. And that should set us up for drilling the first hole. Now believe me, this stuff never goes as planned. This is just one good example of it. This is a straight line in the bodywork. This is a curve. Now what happens if I move it back so it doesn't look awkward? Here's the problem I have. When I flip this over, the bolt holes are not in the fiberglass. They're out at the edge. So what I need to do is move this up, and that lets the bolts go into a much better chunk of the fiberglass. So what it means is I've got to straighten this edge out. And this is all the stuff when you're putting parts from two different manufacturers together. So I need to go over to the belt sander. I'm going to put a piece of tape on this, try to get the angle right, and then clean that. What I have to do is take the curve out of that line. So what happens is what should be a very simple job. Otherwise, these bolt holes are going to be right in the edge, and because this is heavier than the fiberglass, for sure it's going to crack, especially on a track day. Now this is just to estimate. If I grind that much away, that will solve two of the problems. Now the back hole is not great, but it's okay. We can live. We could probably put a washer there. Now I'm biting into some meat here, and I'll have a good catch on the two in the front. So getting rid of this material now, we can do that several ways. We can do it with a belt sander or dress it off with a Dremel tool, because you're actually not grinding it, you're just burning it off. Now I don't know how this material is going to cut. Usually plexiglass is pretty easy to grind away. Would help if we plugged in the machine. Did we plug it in? This is what happens here. Okay, plugged in, amazing. Amazing Rollo. Wait, smell it. Oh my God. You're really not cutting it, you're just burning your way through. I'm just using the tape as a guide. Now what I'll do is a little test fit and just see if I'm close. If not, I'll come back and take some more off. Okay, just a little bit more. It's very close. Granted, this will be a very small detail, but it'll be something to see. Something I'll see. And we got to remember to plug the damn thing in. Alright, that should be a close fit, but I'm going to double check it anyway. I don't want these two lines not to marry up pretty nice. Now I went back several times and kind of fine-tuned this, and look now. See, you wouldn't think this would be a problem, but it is. This is not really a perfectly straight line because it goes in a curve. It means when you sand this on a straight edge, it really has a slight bow to it. So to get it to marry up real nice, let's just see. We're gonna have to take just a little bit more off that side, a little bit more. But again, I'll go back and forth until I'm happy with the way that edge marries up before I polish it. Now the last step is we've got the shape right. I want to polish this just enough. Doesn't look like we butchered up the edge. Anytime you have to custom, and I've customized the windshield on several of the bikes, including the R1, and you can dress the edge off just the way you dress paint off, with compound, buffing, whatever. Once I clean that and wax it, that edge will be, for all purposes, like the same as the factory edge. So by doing all this fitting now, we've got the bolt hole right exactly where we want it. We've got material on both sides, which we didn't have before. Now we've got that one covered. These we're going to be biting into some nice solid material. Nothing is offset. And we have a nice edge up in the front. And now this actually took way longer than what it normally would take, only because of them being two separate manufacturers. Normally, if AirTech made both parts, there would be a little less fitting. But it's good as a good way of demoing just how to do that. Now, if we were to try to take a drill here, this would be a big problem because you might crack all our hard work. What we're going to do is we have a Dremel tool and a bit that's I've not found it critical as long as it's got a point, and just go slow. I'm going to show how I do this. And always keep in mind, if you, as an example, we're going to drill this hole out for Glenn too. Fiberglass tends to crack. That's a problem with fiberglass. So you don't want that drill catching at the very edge and just, or a big chunk of paint coming out or something, especially after all the work we've all done on this part. This is like a communal part, but I'm looking at it. I'm real happy with the way that worked out. With a lot of extra time. It basically burns its way through. It doesn't, that's why it doesn't crack. So now the first step is we're going to put this bolt in. We'll take one of these little guys. Put the nylon washer where it belongs, both sides. Now I can go around and just do the same thing to the other side. So I'll have two bolts holding it in position. Now a lot of people don't realize this. Actually these, let me show one of these. They have threads at one end, and then there's a rubber that you really want to put these with the threads on the end, and that compresses the rubber into like a mushroom. And it leaves the windshield just a little bit loose, which is what it takes to keep it from cracking. And I would say once you mushroom these out just a little bit, let me show this up close and personal. That's probably plenty tight. Let me show that up close. Now see what we've accomplished by doing all this grinding and polishing and everything. This bolt would have otherwise been right on the edge. It would have been a real problem. By doing that, we've got a nice nylon washer here that'll cushion that bolt. And by not over tightening the bolts, hopefully, you know, we're not going to have a crack issue either with the very thin. This is track day fiberglass, very thin. So once they're mushroomed like that, you're pretty much good to go. Then now it's a question of just repeating it the second time, and that'll hold everything in alignment. love that sound. Again, once I get this one in, that'll hold everything in alignment and I can do the other 4. Now, because right now I have 2 bolts holding this in exact alignment. What I can do now is just, before I do the next one, just do a little fine tuning. Actually, I don't have to do any fine tuning. That looks like it's going to be a really good match. I love that sound. The sound of cubic money. Now, as always happens, they gave us 8, I think. Good thing they did, because 1 already stripped. You know, you got to realize when you buy these bolts, they're $3 a dozen or whatever they are. They're really inexpensive, and they don't have to be strong. In fact, you're not doing anything to your advantage if you were using grade 8 bolts here. But again, I've found the best is just leave them just the slightest bit loose, and every once in a while. If you make them too tight, it's way worse than if you don't make them tight enough. And again, I got to repeat that 4 more times. And this is what I love. I love a job that you spend a day, it's all dusty and dirty and smelly and grindy, and you feel like you've been at the dentist. But at the end of the day, it looks beautiful. And that's the thing. A lot of people, it slips by them. They think, but boy, at that end of the day, wow. Well, when Glenn shows up here, he's really going to like this. Now, the windshield's installed. Looks like it's perfect. These are the holes that mount. Some of the fairing mount holes I'm going to drill out for Glenn. Carbon reinforced that. I forgot where the other ones are. There's mounting holes somewhere here. I don't remember where they mount. Oh, here we go. Oh, don't you love that smell? Oh my God. Whew. I don't think it could get a lot better than that. But anyway, there's more stuff. We're in the middle of doing more camera testing. We'll try to add some of those little videos as some of these mounts work or don't work. We've got a whole box of mounts. That's another fun project. We're going to be fooling with that. The Kawasaki project, which here's the next step of it. Glenn already has the material. We've got to do a recover on a seat. I'll put that on video. We've got the wheels ready for Glenn to do a final sanding on. They've already got 2 coats of primer on. We've got our Benelli project that we still have loose ends on that. And the last part of the Honda restoration. And we're at the point now with this where we're pretty much waiting just for Vlad to bring the decal over. The color match looks outstanding. I think that really paid for him to get the paint. That is the real good paint there too. But anyway, this is Glenn's project, and all I have to say at this point in time is it's a good one, and thanks for watching.